these guys decided to fell the tree, something we would have never done.
How did you fight through? Was it more so just sheer grit?
We just were cramming the brush into the back of minivans to get it out of there.
Oh, goodness. Every great company has an origin story. For CVille Tree Service, it didn't start with a shiny new pickup truck and a couple of steel chainsaws. It started with 3 friends, a couple of family minivans, and a promise to do honest work for every customer. They even had a nickname for themselves, the Minivan Mafia. Today, Phil and his business partner lead a multi-crew operation with a reputation that dominates their market. But behind their success were hard lessons, near failures, and a bold commitment to doing things differently in the industry. This is the story of how CVille Tree Service grew from the ground up by putting relationships first. Let's dive in. Phil, welcome to Stumped again. I can't wait to unpack this because the story of how you and your partners built this business isn't just about growth. It's about trust. You've shown that putting relationships first can scale a tree service business in most ways most owners never imagine. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Let's dive in today, Phil. So starting from the top, let's take us back to the very beginning. The story goes, it wasn't just a big pickup truck, but a couple of minivans and 3 friends. Tell us about the Minivan Mafia and how that idea between you and your partners became CVille Tree Service.
Yeah, I had 2 buddies. They were getting out of the military. One of them I'd known for a very long time and had wanted to do something with. And as we were looking, we'd all had an interest in tree work, agriculture, kind of orcharding and that sort of stuff. And then cut a lot of firewood, felled a lot of trees. And the barrier to entry and the startup cost was really one of the big things that we looked at for getting into arboriculture.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, our own experience and talking to other friends, what we'd seen in the service industry, at least in our area, was the constant lament about not even being able to get people, 1, on the phone, 2, to come out if they can get them on the phone, 3, to give them a price if they actually come out, and then 4, to even do the work if they agree to a contract.
Sure.
So we thought, like, hey, we can get into this. There's, if we just show up, even as kind of limited in our understanding of what we were doing, just by showing up, we can probably dominate the market. And so I don't know how naive that was. I think there's still probably a lot of validity to that.
Sure.
And we literally started with maybe about spending $6,000 buying saws, climbing gear, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And not even trucks or chippers. We just used our own minivans. And our very first job, we just were cramming the brush into the back of minivans to get it out of there. So
oh, goodness.
That phase lasted a very short period of time, because that became incredibly obvious that it was untenable for the long haul. But it's still something that makes me laugh.
Yeah, that's awesome, Phil. In those early days operating out of the minivans and building from scratch, what were some of the first moments you realized that your customers were starting to see you as your go-to or kind of their guy for tree services?
Right. I think I don't know that I could say it was really in those early years that we started seeing that, because a lot of that early growth was predominantly, I think, like most businesses, through networking. So a lot of personal networks. I would say it was probably a year or so into where we started seeing repeat customers. That's really, I think, where you start seeing, like, oh, this is our guy.
Sure.
And I mean, I think partly the other one is kind of because we did answer the phone and we're pretty quick to get to looking at people's work. That set us apart. So whether or not I felt like it or they would have said, oh, you're our guy, we definitely had the impression on quite a few jobs that they weren't, even if they were looking for other quotes, they weren't getting them.
Sure.
So
It's kind of interesting, Phil. It sounds like from the beginning you were building a reputation for honest and personal work, an intentional strategy, really from the beginning, but not necessarily aligning, with the fact that it took about a year for some of these guys to see you as your go-to guy. Was that something that you
Mhm.
realized was happening during the fact, or is it something that you realized you were more so just focused on the reputation for, honest and personal work?
I think that was the thing. That was our focus. It was kind of it's the long-term strategy. I think it
Right.
takes a while. Like you have to work for somebody and work for them ideally a couple times before I guess they would classify you as your guy,
Right.
where, oh, I have this issue. I got a guy. Let me call him up, sort of thing. Um, and we had a client or two early on where that I became not necessarily out of the gate, but with a year, it was like, oh yeah, they're gonna call us for almost anything, almost stuff that's not even tree related,
Wow.
which was kind of the first indicator to us of, yeah, that we had credibility with them because if we couldn't do it, we were gonna find somebody that could take care of them.
Today's next question comes up with every growth story has those messy middle chapters. Take me to your hardest day, the moment your phone's not ringing, crews are frustrated, or maybe you're questioning everything. What was going through your head?
Yeah, I think for us, the um, we had the luxury in our early days of not needing a paycheck.
Hmm.
So for a kind of a year or two, we didn't really write a check to the owners at all for it. We were doing all the work,
Sure.
but we were paying bills and that kind of thing. And I think so there was a real there was something really made that building very comfortable in that regard. But at the same time, the kind of the stressor, the messy middle was realizing, hey, we are so underquoting our work right now that at best we're earning like $8 to $10 an hour.
Hmm.
And it just kind of trying to recalibrate, especially on our uh, the partners that were doing the preponderance of the estimating,
Sure.
trying to kind of beat that through people's heads of like, we have to up our prices
Right.
to increase our estimating or we're working for peanuts. And I think it was balanced on the fear or the hesitancy on the other part of the partnership of, but we don't have a backlog of work. And if we don't
Right.
win the work, we're not going to have work to do. So there was kind of this tension of needing almost like this underpricing out of fear
Sure.
to try to win more work when really it's like, at least from my perspective, I didn't care if we won work. I just don't want to work for that little. Like it's
Sure.
like there's actually value in what we're doing. And to move forward, we actually have to have some profit. So that was, you know, constant and that sort of conflict or issue.
Hmm.
I mean, it's not like it's gone away. I think it's changed, but I think that understanding of how do you actually price things well, sell it so that you have enough excess in your earnings
Yeah.
to keep growing the business and to provide good livings for your employees.
Right. Yeah, Phil,
Um,
that brings me
so
into my next question. How did you fight through? Was it more so just sheer grit, or was it more so the fact that your guys' reputation was kind of keeping you guys afloat? Was it maybe a mixture of both?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the whole time our reputation, and I think that's the one, like we never compromised that. We
Right.
never compromised on the quality of the work product. We always encouraged, even when we were starting to shift from having owners at every job, we were encouraging the employees to interact with the clients, to have good conversations with them,
Mm.
and just kind of take that extra time to engage with them and essentially maintain a high level of customer service and quality of product. So that never, it was all, I think most of that messier, the fighting through was really on the back end. Like,
Mm.
how do we, in the ownership group, how do we structure and feel or look at um, the way the business is going and ultimately how we're pricing and selling work?
Sure.
So,
So you started as a trio of friends, right, Phil?
Mhm.
How did that initial partnership evolve as the business grew and faced these challenges?
so I think it's been an interesting journey for sure. I'm the oldest of the partners and have had the most business experience coming into it, having owned my own business prior and
Right.
been a partner in a couple other businesses as well. So, but at the same time, I also had the majority of the technical expertise out of the gate. So even kind of finding those roles of responsibility sharing,
Sure.
um, I would say some of it was where is the most important part for at that moment, like for me to kind of fit in to make sure that we're successful and have the other two guys ramp up their both skilled and business acumen. Um, and so I think in as a result of that, we haven't always had the greatest people working in their strengths. I think that's been one of the biggest struggles is how do we kind of determine and help people self-identify
Yeah.
their strengths, and then how do we encourage people to work in their strengths, set up our systems and organization to actually have people succeed and win in their strengths. Um, so I think that's kind of it's been a shifting of responsibilities in the company.
Right.
You know, when we first started, I was the primary climber and tree cutter.
Hmm.
Now I haven't been in a tree in months because I'm doing almost all sales and kind of higher level running of the business. So
Sure.
it's shifted as the different capabilities have morphed and adjusted. So it's fun.
As you talk
It's been
about
fun.
shifts, Phil, at some point the partnership has changed a little bit. I know we talked about this a couple months ago. Last time we met, even we talked about this a little bit. You eventually bought out your third partner. What led to that decision, and how has it shaped the business that you and your current co-partner run today?
Yeah, it was a good opportunity. I think the partner I bought out was probably like we're still all really good friends, but I think he had, in my estimation, had the hardest time adjusting to business ownership
Hmm.
and kind of looking at it, at least in the way I would look at it. And
Sure.
so he and I tended to rub very frequently on, um, kind of that issue of do you have a plump schedule and kind of with almost no profit margin, or do you have a lighter schedule but have margin?
Right.
And so um, I think because that was something that we were never really able to reconcile.
Yeah.
I won in the end
Yeah.
because I bought him out.
I was gonna
So,
say
and
that's kind of one of your foundational reputation messages, right? Like you mentioned earlier, it's not about working for peanuts. It's about pricing the job properly and positioning yourself as someone with authority that knows what the heck they're talking about.
right, right. And it's, in a lot of part, it's like I'm looking at it because I have currently three of my five sons work for me
Right.
or in the business. And it really is this part of like, how do we create a business that enables, not just my family and the next generation, but even our other employees that we've brought on? How does it enable them to earn essentially professional livings in this blue collar industry? Um, and the big one is in order to do that, you got to charge enough for your time, for everybody's time to cover that.
Sure.
So, um, and I don't know that we, it does, a lot of times we do get comments of like, oh, that's so expensive, or you're so expensive. And it's like, yeah, I don't, at the same time, I'm not sure how many people are saying that to that same thing to their plumbers, their doctors, their engineers. It's like, it's just, we deliver a good product. And so in order to maintain the high quality and not cut corners, we have to charge for it.
Right. Yeah.
So,
When you get your car taken to the mechanic and the mechanic tells you what's wrong with it, you don't tell the mechanic, no, that's not wrong with it. I only needed this. I only needed this. It's like, well, you actually
right.
can't drive without this drive shaft here, sir. And it's like, no, like I asked you for tires, sir. Like, I just need you to replace the tires.
Or
Or
give
go
me
to
the
your
spaghetti,
doctor. Yeah, right.
or give me the spaghetti noodle drive shaft. You're going to charge me, $500 for this drive shaft, but I want that spaghetti noodle that's only $50.
Yeah,
There is, and I think that's the thing that we struggle with, like, because you can get a lower priced provider of
sure.
care in the tree industry. And some of those guys are pretty good. But it is, I would say by and large, you're going to get what you pay for.
Talks about scaling without losing that personal touch and some of the lessons that you've learned. As you've added
Mhm.
trucks and crews, how did you make sure your company didn't lose that personal, your guy, or the go-to guy kind of reputation that you built?
So I think in the initial phase, so I think from the beginning, out of the gate, it's always been, we're going to be very responsive. Ideally, in an ideal world, if you're calling, you're getting through to somebody immediately.
Right.
Like you're never leaving a message. Um, if you emailed us, you're going to get an email back immediately. So that's the ideal, unattainable, impractical. But I think as we've adjusted and kind of managed and developed our internal systems and stuff, it's
Mm-hmm.
always striving towards that goal.
Sure.
That, kind of in that realm of your guy, that if I say, hey, I've got a guy, and I call my guy, you can be assured as my friend that I'm referring, my guy is actually going to reach out to you and call you back pretty quickly.
Sure.
Um, and it's going to do just about anything they can to get you taken care of. So that's always been kind of the first and continues to be the ongoing as we structure our systems. And then I think the other initial part was, and part of our marketing was, we have an owner on every job.
Right.
We've eliminated that because it's untenable at this point. It's not impractical.
It's a good problem.
And
Good problem to eliminate.
right, right. So, but we do have, constant, we have weekly meetings with all of our crews. We have constant communication. We have sales meetings. So our sales rep, our sales arborists is what we're calling them now, that they are essentially empowered
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately driven to make sure that the customer is being communicated with. And so I feel like that's our starting point, is ultimately it's really about communication.
Sure.
That ironically, I feel like people are willing to forgive a lot of sort of missteps if they're being communicated to. Like, example, like if I'm going to be late,
Sure.
nobody really thinks twice about if I'm being late. If I'm calling ahead of time and saying, hey, I apologize, running late, it's probably 15 minutes, but if you're supposed to be there on time and you don't show up for 15 minutes and they're waiting,
Right.
now they think they think less of you, and it doesn't leave them that good impression. So
Yeah.
that's really the backbone of all of that for us, is that trying to always up our communication game.
Sure. Yeah, Phil, that leads me directly into the next question, honestly. What role does communication play in customer loyalty? How does that play into, some of those clients like you're seeing repeat jobs from?
It's huge, and especially like we do have, and in the last couple of years, we've developed a number of clients where it's almost like they're wanting to put their tree management on autopilot. And so the fact that we're the ones reaching out to them saying, hey, it's springtime, last year we did these things. I think these trees that we know on your property, we need to come out and inspect these two things that we did. Might be a good time to consider these other things. So I think that aspect, they're really appreciating kind of that, at least for some of the clients that want it, that they can just kind of turn over management of their trees and know that it's going to get taken care of.
Mm. That's awesome, Phil.
So
What's your system for turning one-time customers into repeat calls? You have any systems built there, Phil?
that, I wish I could say yes. It starts with the good first job. It
Sure.
is really the big one.
Yeah,
is
that big first
that
impression.
Right. And I think the nice thing, I feel like we've built, so my other two partners, the one I bought out and the one that's remaining, the all three of us, kind of one of the common threads in our personalities is we are generally educators.
Right.
And so when we go visit a client, we we joke about it. It's like they're drinking from the fire hose in a lot of ways. And so it's the struggle for us is how do we narrow down the amount of information, how do we give them a ton of information, but yet still identify the discrete things that are of most importance.
Right.
And so I think as we've gone forward, the fantastic part to me is we've been able, as we brought on additional sales arborists, we've brought on people that are similar in that regard, that are going to spend longer with the client and kind of over communicate about all of the stuff that they're, not just the one tree maybe they called us about, but if we see other things at their property, and it's that trick of, or the tension of like, we're not trying to necessarily sell you more work, while what we're seeing might prompt you to buy more work from us. It's really trying to engender that trust of our ultimate goal is for their tree well-being, that everything for them is being taken care of, whether we're doing it or not.
Sure. Yeah, highlighting the
So,
right areas of risk to educate the customer is pretty important, versus overloading them, like you mentioned, kind of that fire hose analogy.
right. And we try to keep it where it's like, we can do all of this stuff. And I think that one of the jokes we have, or at least I use with our clients, because we're here in Central Virginia, home of Thomas Jefferson. So the joke to the client is like, I could literally probably spend most of what they earn in a month on their trees. And it's like, if this tree we're looking at was planted on Thomas Jefferson, it'd be, if we knew that, it would be no expense barred. It's like, we're going to spend all the money. That's not most trees. So we need to find where in their threshold of what can they do themselves?
Sure.
What do they want us to do? And sort of that, so it's just always a communication process to kind of figure out how best to tailor the jobs that they're having us do. Some are straightforward where it's like they know what they want and then they just get a price.
Right.
I'd say probably 85% of the work that we're looking at now has some form of consultation involved. Like,
right. I'm sure they know they need some sort of work. They just really don't know exactly what all of it entails. So they have to go through this process to be educated and learn, and then to pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Shift directions just slightly, marketing wise. What has brought in the highest quality jobs? Google ads, local service ads, reviews, kind of word of mouth. What's been your highest performer for you, Phil?
So some of that is hard to really track for us, I think, but I guess what I would say is probably the biggest clients are definitely the ones that have come through networking.
Sure.
And referrals. There's just the trust is already built with
Right.
those. But then the next one really is the Google ads has been from the beginning. So I think that is, I don't want to say it's a shift, but that has been a shift as we've been in business longer. We're getting a lot more of that repeat customers, referrals. When we first started, I mean, almost all of it, because our SEO wasn't up, so stuff coming in organically wasn't really there.
Sure.
Really was the Google ads has predominantly been the main driver.
Awesome.
So I think it still remains the same that way today.
Awesome. Love to hear that, sir. How has working with Growth Ring Media helped you stay close to your customers as you've scaled?
Oh man, honestly, the biggest thing for me has been that you guys have taken that burden off of my plate of trying to know what is changing in the landscape,
Sure.
especially in the Google ads realm. That it's like, I don't have to know how this stuff is working. And and it's kind of like, what we were talking about earlier about like, I want someone to manage my trees for me.
Right.
It's that same, like I have that same peace of mind. it's allowed me to shift that vision or focus away from having to manage that
Sure.
to doing other things. So, which again is back to it's allowed me to do more quotes, which allows as a business to have more owner input with higher value clients.
Sure. Definitely
Instead
spending
of
your time on what's more business focused for you as an owner versus running an ads account.
right,
That's not quite ideal probably
right,
for you.
right, right. And I inherently don't have a whole lot of trust of just finding people randomly.
Sure.
And so I think like the referral that I got from you guys was definitely like, okay, I trust these guys and I can now move forward. So
Love to hear that, Phil. Thanks for sharing. Looking out 3 to 5 years, Phil, what does success look like for CVille Tree Service? Maybe multi-location, bigger teams? Are you looking for maybe more market share?
I
Or
don't
yeah,
yeah, I don't know exactly the way that I would put it. I think my from the beginning, my goal is and I think it's kind of like how we measure this is kind of to be seen time frame.
sure.
But really that we've creating an organization where the employees that we've had, they always have career progression.
Mm,
And so if in order for them to stay with us here in Charlottesville, if that means we've got to eat or gobble or kind of grab more of the local pie or extend our radius of where we work
right.
from our location here, which inherently means if our current ground guy, his career progression is at some point in the future he's going to be a crew leader, well, we need to have enough work for him to have a crew to lead.
Right.
So I think it's that kind of growth. And then also with that for our really high achievers, that there is some possibility of vision for how can I actually become an owner, not necessarily of this organization, but partnered with this organization to open maybe another satellite office or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like, to me, that's success. Like if we can get to there, and that might actually be more like a 10-year goal,
Sure.
but that is, if we're pushing along those lines where our guys that we're not essentially having guys have to move on after 3 or 4 years, that we have enough work and enough mobility within our organization that our employees can look and say, oh, I can have a 40, 50, 60-year career here.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting, Phil. What an honor to be on a team like yours. What's the craziest job you've ever taken, Phil?
Oh man, that's they're all crazy. We we had a down tree kind of was massive leaning on a house, but the root ball was up way on an embankment and it was incredibly heavy and really far away from where we could set up the crane. And that one was a very interesting scenario of how to get that out of there.
I
I
can
think those are
imagine.
always the big crane ones are always super interesting because they're just the fact that we're using a really big crane means the job is more complex than what we can deal with in our normal
Right.
fashion.
Right.
So those are always pretty fun.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. Favorite piece of gear on your trucks, Phil?
I would say at the moment, it's even though I don't use it hardly ever at the moment, it's got to be most of my climbing gear.
Cool.
I love being in the tree, so yeah, that's part of I would say my Rock Exotica Akimbo ascender descender device.
Nice.
Is my favorite.
Nice. We'll have a screenshot up here so everybody can take a look
There.
in case you're not familiar with what Phil's talking about.
Right.
Pretty awesome
I
piece
always
there.
like my steel. I have a 220 top handled electric chainsaw because I'm not in the tree very much. I don't want to have to tote fuel around.
Sure.
So that I'm actually I don't think it's actually run through wood yet, but
Mm,
that's pretty fun to have in my truck too.
yeah,
So,
I can imagine some of those top handle saws are pretty fun. No bias here with my steel shirt on today.
there you go.
Not to mention my family ties. One thing every homeowner should know before hiring a tree service, Phil. What's something that you would share with someone that's never hired a tree service company before?
It's expensive to start with. Like it's just like hands down. Even if you get the cheap guys that have no personal protective equipment, we call them the chuck in the truck. They're your hillbillies. They're coming up to town or in the woods and they're doing your job. Even those guys, it's not inexpensive work. And the more skilled that the people get, it becomes more efficient, but it is more pricey. So I think the things when we have people that are getting additional quotes, friends or just other, past clients or potential future clients,
Sure.
the main thing that I recommend is request a certificate of insurance. Because if they can give you and you're going to have varying levels of coverage, but the fact that they've got insurance tells you that they're legitimate. Like they're legitimately in business. And we've run across situations where, in my mind, I'm thinking about this old lady or older lady. She had hired a tree company to remove a tree from her backyard.
Sure.
And these guys decided to fell the tree, something we would have never done. We would have done it totally different. And of course, they dropped it right on her house.
Shocker.
And they had no insurance and were, never like they just were gone, And so I think that's the part where that certificate of insurance is a very, hopefully we've never had a claim. And I think hopefully most tree companies never have to file a claim,
Sure.
but it's kind of the badge almost as much as, if you were looking for someone that had like an ISA certified arborist, which is like, I think that's a great starting point. But the first piece that I would recommend is just verify that they have insurance, ask for that COI, and then, yeah, I think that's the big one. And be prepared to, and I guess the other part too would be make sure you feel comfortable working with them. If they come out, and that's the part where we have really tried to shine is all our guys wear uniforms like this. We wear collared shirts. Most of the people in our industry wear polos. It's kind of, or just t-shirts.
Right.
It might seem a little vain, but it's like, it's not just our sales guys, it's our field guys too. So that when they're showing up, it's the fact that they have a uniform, they have all appropriate PPE or the personal protective equipment, helmets, ear protection, eye protection. They're wearing chainsaw pants,
Right.
kind of all of that stuff. It has a level of professionalism, and that's what we try to promote and give peace of mind to our clients, even
Right.
by that presentation. And so I think that's the one. It's like, if you got guys showing up without helmets, without hearing protection, and they're doing a bunch of work, it's probably no bueno. They
Sure.
might be fine, but it's just a huge red flag for us.
Best way that's your favorite way to unwind after a hard week?
Oh boy. I play games with my boys. So we'll play Uno or different stuff like it. Most of them are adults. So
Sure.
that's
We still have
we'll
a
play
weekly
card
game
games
night,
and
and I'm
stuff.
26, so no judgment from my side here.
Yeah. Yeah. With your dad.
With my family, yeah, with our whole family,
Yeah.
even my grandparents, they still play in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably ours is we'll sit around and play games.
Nice.
A lot of weeks I just go to sleep and then wake up
Sure.
on Monday morning.
Phil's out. It's Friday evening. Phil's going to be gone till Monday morning.
That's right. That's right.
That's funny.
So
If you could give yourself, your younger self, one piece of advice starting it out, what would you do? Or what would it be?
I guess I think this is a little less lighthearted. I would probably recommend vetting your partners a little better.
Hmm.
So I think just in having the ability, and maybe this is an old man's thing, is that kind of self-awareness, um, of being able to identify people's strengths and weaknesses.
Sure.
And, I know when we started, I probably thought more highly of myself in particular areas that I've, since been like, oh, I'm not as good at that as I thought I was. And I think,
Hmm.
my partners probably suffer from some of that same delusion. So, and if everybody's deluded in a group, it, it you have the clash of delusion. So that would be my advice probably, is know yourself and make sure your partners know themselves and you guys know each other.
That's awesome,
So,
Phil. Phil, thanks for sharing such an honest look at what it takes to grow a tree service business. For owners listening, this is proof that putting customers first doesn't slow growth, it fuels it. If you want to learn how we help businesses like Phil's scale without losing their personal touch, visit growthringmedia.com. Until next time, don't get stumped, keep growing.